The last time Trump was president, Trump 1.0, he tried to make the naturalization test much harder. In fact, if you go on the USCIS website and you look at the study materials for the naturalization portion, there are two sets of study materials. One of them is the 2008 version of the test study materials, and one is the 2020 version, which was only in effect for a very short period of time because Trump made those changes and then a court reversed it. So everything reverted back to the 2008 test unless you filed your naturalization application during a very specific window when the new rules were in effect. Hey guys, so I've been talking for months about how the naturalization process is going to change, and now it's finally happened. The new USCIS director has said that within a year he wants to see the test become much harder, even implementing an essay portion, which honestly for some of my clients would be devastating because they could barely speak English well enough to pass the test. But like now if they had to write a paragraph, that would be game over. That would take like another 5 years of preparation for them to be able to do that. Whereas other clients speak English and write English perfectly, it would make no difference for them. I think the purpose of these changes is to increase the number of denied applications, which historically somewhere around 92% of naturalization applications get approved. And that was pretty consistent across the last Trump administration and Biden administration. And that's been true for the first few months of Trump's current administration as well, as far as I could tell. But these changes now might have a notable effect in reducing the percentage of approved applications. So the last time Trump was president, Trump 1.0, he tried to make the naturalization test much harder. In fact, if you go on the USCIS website and you look at the study materials for the naturalization portion, there are two sets of study materials. One of them is the 2008 version of the test study materials, and one is the 2020 version, which was only in effect for a very short period of time because Trump made those changes and then a court reversed it. So everything reverted back to the 2008 test unless you filed your naturalization application during a very specific window when the new rules were in effect. But now the Trump administration is going back to a harder version of the test. So there's going to be a new version, the 2025 version of the test. And I have my handy cheat sheet here where I wrote down some notes. The new test is going to apply to anyone who files their N400 application after October 20th. So if you're struggling with the study material, you should apply now because it's going to get a little bit harder. It's not getting much harder immediately, but let's talk about some of the changes for people who submit their application on October 20th or later. So if you file it on October 20th, these new rules also are in effect. If you file it on October 19th, you're going to be using the 2008 version of the study materials. So now, instead of 100 possible questions for them to draw from, the 2008 version of the test, everyone up until now would have to study 100 questions. USCIS officer would verbally ask them up to 10 questions. If the applicant gets 6 correct, pretty much over and they pass the test. There are some other minor portions, but this is the main part of the test. Now, USCIS can ask from a pool of 128 questions. And about 75% of the questions are exactly the same. Some of the questions are new, and some of the old questions were removed entirely. So there is substantial overlap, but there are a series of new questions that are presumably harder. I haven't actually looked at the questions. They're probably not that hard, but there are new questions, so there is more stuff to study now. Before, you had to get 6 out of 10 correct. Now you have to get 12 out of 20 correct. So still the same percentage, but you have to get more total questions correct. In addition to changes to the actual test, there are some other notable changes that can dramatically reduce the number of applicants who get approved. The first one is that there's going to be stricter vetting of the disability exceptions. So people who have some sort of disability that prevents them from learning English or taking the English and Civics test, historically, they could file a form, a certification from a physician that says they have some sort of disability that prevents them from getting approved. These were always disfavored by USCIS. The few times that I've submitted these for people who are disabled or have some major health condition that prevents them from learning new information, USCIS gave us a really hard time. We had to show up for the interview several times. They kept asking for more documents from the physician. They kept asking us to redo the certification form. Eventually, we were able to succeed in getting them naturalized without them having to take the civics test or have to answer questions in English. But now that process is going to become harder. It was already pretty hard. Now it's going to become harder. Now, the biggest change, in my opinion, is going to be changes to the good moral character requirement. Historically, the absence of bad character was enough to show that you had the 3 or 5 years of good character, depending on what section of naturalization you're applying under. But now, you need to also show positive contributions to American society, which I don't think is a terrible thing. But the problem with this is that it's gonna be largely a discretionary determination where the officer can just weigh the pros and cons of your contributions and make a determination as to whether they think you have good character or not. I'm curious to see how this actually plays out. I'm curious to see if this is challenged or what the regulations on this are gonna be. Because if it's just gonna be purely a discretionary determination, that's gonna, I think, really reduce the number of applications who get approved and just give the officers a ton of discretionary power to see if they like you or not and whether they want to approve you, help you become a citizen or not. And then finally, there's just going to be more vetting generally. There's going to be resumption of community investigations. You know, they could show up at your job or talk to your neighbors about you and see if you're actually living there, see if anything you've previously submitted is not true. And generally, there's just going to be more vetting, more background checks, more security clearance checks. And the purpose of all of these is going to be to slow down the naturalization process and increase the number of denied applications. So anyway, guys, I've been saying for a while now, I mean, at least since Trump became president, that if you qualify for naturalization, you should either apply now or when these policies improve, which is probably going to be at least when Trump is out of office, but you know, who knows who the next guy is going to be. So if you think you qualify for naturalization, I strongly urge you to apply as soon as possible before these new policies go into effect. If you are considering applying, you've been on the fence, I mean, this is your wake-up call to apply or at least speak to an attorney to see if there are any major red flags that you need to be concerned about. If you want to speak to an attorney to see if you qualify for naturalization, or you just have some questions, or you're considering hiring an attorney to handle your case from start to finish and you need guidance, I'm your guy. My name is Puyan Darian. I'm an immigration attorney handling these cases nationwide. You could schedule a consultation directly with me. The link to schedule the consultation is in the video description below. You can also go to my website, darianlaw.com, and click the booking link right there. It takes like 5 minutes. And if you're new to my channel, I'm going to be putting out more videos on these topics as more information becomes available. So be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time for another one.